Hey, morning. This is everything you're going to need to sharpen. Assorted different stones, some gloves because you're going to tear your hands up, safety glasses. I've had stones explode in my face. They're good to have. Dental picks, that's to clean out your bar. Sharpie to mark your links. You'll see what I mean. And this is a Norbide stick for adjusting the angles and rounding off the edges on your stone. And then the other thing you're going to need is wax, which is you use on the stone so you don't overheat and harden the teeth as you're grinding them. Otherwise they get too brittle and they break apart as you start sharpening or as you start using it. So first thing you're going to want to do, pull your chain. You're going to take your dental picks, start from the sprocket. Start from the sprocket, scrape everything out. After you do that, use an air gun, blow it out. Do both sides, and that's why you need the dental picks. So next up, you're going to take your chain. You should wash it first with some kind of solvent, mineral spirits, anything like that. Get the old sap out, get all the grit and grime out of the links so they stay nice and clean. Otherwise your rollers start breaking down, your chain gets sloppy and loose, and it wears out a lot faster. You end up wearing the chain out before you lose the teeth. So you're gonna set everything up. Depending on the chain, it's gonna depend on your angles. Now, one of the things you can do is on the top, I don't know if you can see, but on the top of each chain, there is a laser etched line. Again, not sure if you can see it, but so what you can do is use that laser etched line to adjust your angle on this table in relation to the stone. So you take your chain, drop it on that laser line, and then pivot this until it matches that laser line. If it's a new chain, brand new, you have the box, it'll tell you. You can go that route, or if it's also still fresh, you can use the original cut on the link to adjust your stone. So for this one, it wants about a 35-degree angle. Next up is you have your tooth holder. You're going to bring your tooth back, drop your blade, your stone, till it just barely hits the tooth. So right there, you can kind of feel it scraping the side of the tooth. For your chop angle, again, if you have the paperwork, you can try and use it off that. I've never had luck finding a good measurement on that. So what I do is run it at 60, 65, depending on the chain. If it's a Pico chain, a smaller chain like this, then I run it at 65. If it's a 325, which most mid-size saws are, I run it at 60. If it's 3/8, it's also usually 60 degrees for your compound angle up top here. So that's right here. So this chain, I'm running at 65. It likes the sharper angles. The last thing you want to do is adjust your height or how far down you're going to cut. So over on the top, there's an adjustment screw with a set. And right now you can see the chain, or the stone is not touching the chain. We're just going to lower that just to the point where it wants to touch. And then go up just a touch so you don't bottom out. So now your chain's all set up. You want to make sure your stones are properly dressed. So most Oregon and factory stones are going to come squared off like this here. There's no round to the edge. This particular stone I use for the rakers. We'll get to that later. If your stone's round or square, you're going to need to use the Norbide stick to get it oval and get it rounded off so you get the proper cut on the tooth. This one's already round. This particular stone here is for a 325 chain. The one that's on the machine now is for a Pico. The other thing we're going to do is use this wax. It's machining wax. You use it. It helps cool the stone, keep the chain from overheating. If it gets too hot, it'll turn blue. You know you ground way too long if it turns blue, and then when you start using it, it's going to chip and break apart a lot faster. So we'll go ahead and fire up the machine, make some noise, and walk you through the rest of the process. Safety glasses are on. So we're going to turn it on. First thing we're going to do, load it up with some soap, wax, whatever you got. I've used Irish Spring before. So your first cut, you want to push down and pull the chain back. This is why you wear gloves, because as you start sharpening, this will come right into the palm of your hand and slice you wide open, and it's not very fun. So you're going to tighten your lower bar here, check your angle, make sure it's still at 35 for this particular chain. My machine's worn out, so even though it's tight, it'll still rock back and forth. And then you're going to come down. You want to just lick that chain. So right now, I need to advance the chain forward because I'm barely hitting it. Go a little tighter. You want to walk it in like this. If you start too aggressive, you're going to take a lot of the tooth off, and it's just that much more wear. You're going to go through chains way too fast. Alright, so now after we get the feed correct, we want to check to make sure we cut all the way in and we took out the bulk of the tooth that we wanted to. So right now, it appears as though the tooth is still a little dirty right here and here. So we didn't go quite as deep as we really needed or wanted to. So we're just gonna go a little bit deeper and see if that cleans up the rest of the tooth. Again, you just want to shave the tooth. You don't want to hog it out. You can't put material back. You can keep taking it off. Again, we're going to check it. We're going to go just a touch deeper. And I'm barely moving this knob, guys. This is about it. Just barely, probably about 2 minutes worth of angle. Alright, so that tooth is clean, or sharp. So then the last step you do is clean the top of your tooth off, because you're going to have wax build up on there from the stone. You're going to take your Sharpie and mark it, just so you know where you started on the chain. You don't have to mark every tooth, but you just mark your first link. Now, in the chains, there is typically a master link where you'll have two of the same cutters in a row, so two left sides or two right sides in a row. A lot of guys tell you to start there when you sharpen your chain. I don't recommend that, and the reason why is if you take off too much on your first tooth and you decide, oh, that was too much, let me back it off, well, now that first tooth is always going to be short, and then the next time you go to sharpen it, if you go to that same link, you're going to make it even shorter and shorter and shorter. Eventually that first link is going to be so short, and then you'll have a decent chain the rest of the way. So I always just pick a random place on the chain to start. It doesn't matter. When you run through doing all your links, right, so there's your next one, so on and so forth, you would get back to your beginning. When you get to your original link, I always do it again lightly, just because as you go through the chain, you might have to make one or two small adjustments for whatever reason. Wear on the stone, the chain or the first tooth you picked was a little different than the rest. Maybe half the links got burned, whatever. So hit that first tooth. If you take off a lot of material, go to your second and third until you found out or find where your final adjustment was for the remainder of the chain. So then you're gonna loosen up the knob down here, pivot the chain over to the opposing side, 35 degrees. And then we're gonna reset up for this side. So setting up your opposite side, you might have to move your link holder in or out. This one's been boogered up quite a few times where it's missing part of the material. So it usually doesn't get in the way too much anymore, but I should make a new one at some point. Typically when you switch sides like this, the only thing you really need to adjust is your depth. The depth of your cut, maybe a little of your advancing, but you really, again, you want to just barely scrub the chain. You don't want to really get in there and hog anything out crazy. So right now I'm gonna just raise my depth up because I can feel it bottoming out, and drop it back down, and we'll take a cut and see how it looks. So same as before, we're not deep enough. We're gonna just drop it a little bit more, recut it. There you go. I don't know if you guys noticed, but as I come down, I lick it a little and I come up. You don't want to sit there and grind on it for 3 to 5 seconds. You want to just kiss it lightly and just keep working the chain. If you grind and hold it, that's when you're going to overheat your link, burn it, and then again, it gets too brittle. You're not going to have a good time. And then you go through it. The last step is adjusting your rakers. I can make a separate video on that, but as you sharpen your teeth, you have to adjust your raker so there's a difference between the height of the raker and the height of the tooth. That way as wood comes through, this raker says, okay, you can only bite off so much material, otherwise you stall out your saw. We'll cover rakers in a different video later in life. All right, hope this helps. Any questions, let me know. Thanks, bye.